Hello, friends. Today I want to introduce you to a country that many people do not know about and cannot find on the world map. This country is one of the 7 richest countries in the world in terms of income per capita and the standard of living of this very population. And also here gasoline is cheaper than water. Interest-free loans, utility bills are paid by the state, and sometimes it simply forgives borrowers all their loans. It's a phenomenal country, which only 25 years ago was being mercilessly scorched by its neighbor and mixed with the ground. Today, skyscrapers are growing faster than mushrooms. Sales of super expensive and exclusive cars exceed all imaginable forecasts. And for every citizen of the country, there is 1 servant and 1.5 guest workers. Here is the most valuable currency in the world. This is Kuwait, one of the richest countries in the world. Huge oil reserves allow to live and not deny oneself anything. There is no place to spend money. On the sizes Kuwait is little more than Kaliningrad region, and only 3.5 million people live here. Among them only 1 million are citizens of the country. Among this golden million in distributed oil revenues, for example, on weddings, young couple receives from the state a gift of $250,000. According to other data, $15,000. The salary of a doctor or teacher is $15,000. Here it should be noted that the locals do not work as rank-and-file doctors, but only occupy senior positions. Land costs pennies for locals. A $250,000 mortgage can be obtained at 0% interest. Most likely, half of the loan after 5-10 years you will just be forgiven. Medicine and education are free. If you want to study abroad, the government will pay for your flight, tuition, and still give you a $2,000 scholarship. If a Kuwaiti falls ill and cannot be treated at home, the government will pay for treatment in any country for the sick person, as well as all expenses for accompanying relatives. The child allowance is $200. Payable until the baby is 26 years old. Allowance for a divorced woman $1,400 a month until she finds a job. The minimum pension is $3,000. In 2007, the government forgave $1 billion in loans to citizens. Sometimes they just give money away. For example, on the 50th anniversary of independence, they gave away $3,500 to everyone. Last year, everyone could get free basic necessities like rice, butter, chicken, and so on for a year. The monthly allowance for a master's degree is $700, a doctoral degree $1,400, a one-time bonus for teachers for length of service, a salary for 18 months, for men 30 years of uninterrupted service, for women 25. Bonuses in general are plentiful. On average, every Kuwaiti gets another 50% on top of his salary in the form of bonuses. In Kuwait, even for foreigners, there are virtually no taxes. Companies that bring goods into the country pay 4%, a very small tax. All these bonuses apply only to Kuwaiti citizens. 70% of the country's population are disenfranchised guest workers who cater to the golden million. It is virtually impossible to get citizenship. The cost of living in Kuwait is lower than in expensive Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, and wages for foreign workers are higher than in the same Qatar or the Arab Emirates, where increased demand for jobs from migrants has led to lower wages. The cost of living in Kuwait is more or less equivalent to living in Europe. The entire oil industry here is state-owned. It was taken away from the British after the Emirate gained independence and in 1961, and now not a single drop of oil goes past the Emirati coffers. It is extracted exactly as much as it is needed for free existence, and the world endowed Kuwaitis with many blessings, free education, and for especially gifted ones tuition is paid in leading universities of the world, free treatment in any country, interest-free credits for habitation from the state. The Quran forbids making money with money, that is, lending at interest. The unemployment benefit is $800. And the minimum wage in the public sector is $2,500. Gastarbeiter's average wage is $1,000. For the construction of their own house, the government gives a loan of up to $1 million, which is usually enough for a house with all the amenities for 5 rooms. But most importantly, when oil goes up in the world market, and the world forgives all debts and all loans are written off. So Kuwaitis just pray that oil prices go up again. There is nothing interesting here, no history, no special culture or traditions. Kuwait is a huge shopping mall in the middle of the desert, where fed up, lazy Kuwaitis walk around, each served by 2 guest workers. All foreign companies that operate in Kuwait are required by law to employ a certain percentage of the local population. It is the same situation in Saudi, Oman and Bahrain, and yet they must be paid a very decent wage. This is what an expert writes, a particular case from the experience of a colleague. They hired a Kuwaiti to work in a factory with a $10,000 salary and a couple of Indians in his place for a pittance because the Kuwaiti simply does not go to work and it is impossible to fire him. Moreover, when the administration needs his signature on some documents, they call him at home and ask him to come to work to sign, and he just answers, "You need you," and come. He just answers, "You have to come and sign." They are met by a sleepy, fat Kuwaiti who can't even write and just puts a stupid cross. In general, as a colleague said, Kuwaitis are mostly lazy fat guys who were just lucky to be born in Kuwait. But Kuwait has good laws. Yesterday, a court sentenced a local man to 5 years in prison for insulting the world Sabah al-Ahmad al-Sabah. And on Twitter, the ban on criticism and peace here is written into the Kuwaiti constitution. Kuwait has been active in recent months in combating criticism of the country's leadership on microblogging. In January, a local journalist was sentenced to 2 years for criticism on Twitter. In 2016, 5 people, including Amir's relatives, were sentenced to prison for speaking unfavorably about the country's leader in WhatsApp messages. Alcohol is completely banned in Kuwait, here, not sold at all, and if necessary at the border can be sent home. But in terms of clothing for women, there are no restrictions. Not only is every citizen of Kuwait rich and cannot worry about his future, a roof over his head and fruit on his table, so also has a personal servant. If you go to the market or in a store, you can notice how a man in white dashi or a woman in black hijab is often followed by a servant with a cart, walking between the rows of shops. The owner merely points out which fruits he likes and pays the seller, while the servant puts the purchases into bags and carries them. To realize how much money people have, it is enough to go into any jewelry store or a giant mall. In the shops, you will hardly ever find a thin gold chain or a small ring, but instead the walls are covered with massive gold belts priced at $10,000 or more. And in the shop windows there are rings studded with large diamonds or other precious stones. Families are at the center of life in Kuwait. Families spend a lot of free time together, and it is not uncommon for relatives to work together. Kuwaitis are very hospitable people, so don't be surprised if you have dinner at 11 p.m. The time leading up to dinner is a time for socializing. Traditionally, to sit on cushions on the floor, and you must eat with your right hand because left-handers are considered unclean. In general, the rules of life in Kuwait are quite simple and do not use alcohol and drugs, which are prohibited here, and do not criticize the authorities. Such a controversial country, this Kuwait, a monarchical paradise on earth, where people live in prosperity but are forced to be silent. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Give your likes. See you in the next video.